looks like everybody is going to watch or has watched the new movie It Ends With Us. People are talking about the quality of the movie or the backstage scandals. I also would like to talk about the movie, but in a slightly different way. And that is by talking about the psychological theory behind the movie It Ends With Us. Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hi, my name is Bri and I'm a pre-qualified psychologist. If you're interested in knowing how to use psychological tools to improve your life, but also to navigate the world around us, then you should stick around by subscribing. Today we're going to talk about the movie It Ends With Us. For those who have been living under a rock, this is a movie based on a Colleen Hoover's book that talks about an abusive relationship. I am not going to talk about the quality of the movie itself. I don't feel like I could add anything interesting on the table, considering that criticizing a movie is beyond my competencies. I am here to talk about the psychological theory that is beyond the concept of the movie. And this psychological principle is also at the foundation of even real life abusive relationships, so this is why I feel it's really important to talk about it. The concept I'm talking about is the one of family scripts. What is a family script? Family script is a theory that believes that individuals repeat patterns that were present in their families of origin. We all have family scripts to some degree, and some of those are positive or just neutral. So for example, we might have taken from our families what is the right time to have dinner or how to spend the summer vacations. However, other family scripts can be less helpful and actually at times very damaging. For example, a child that grows up in an environment where one parent is abusive towards another might learn to accept and in some cases even expect similar dynamics in their future relationships. So on one side, they can learn to tolerate violence from the abusive parent, but they might also learn from the abused parent that love involves sacrifice of suffering, and might therefore tolerate violence and abuse in relationships because they believe that is a necessary part of being loved or just being in a relationship. Hi guys, this is the Bri that is editing the video from a very low quality future. Apologies, but life is too short to make a proper video set up right now. There will be many additions from the future in this video because I realized that I could have explained some of the concept better. So here I am. With regards to family script, I wanted to say that this is something that doesn't only concerns victims of domestic violence, but also perpetrators of domestic violence could have learned to use violence in relationship from abusive parents. So if one of the parents was violent, then they could have learned that it is okay to express negative feelings through violence in a relationship. But let's talk about the protagonist of the movie. Let's talk about Lily. Lily comes from a family where the father is abusive towards the mother. But also, Lily's mother not only accepts her husband's violence, but also justifies that violence, reminding, for example, Lily that her father loved her. At the start of the movie, we also see that Lily's mother has the tendency to always make her feel guilty. So make her feel guilty because she wasn't there when her father died, because she wasn't maybe very collaborative during the funeral service. These might be coping mechanisms that Lily's mothers also project towards herself. She might herself feel some sort of guilt for staying with an abusive partner, but also might feel that she deserved the violence from the abusive partner. These are coping mechanisms that are not unusual in victims of abuse and that potentially make it harder to address or escape these sort of difficult situations. At the start of the movie, Lily's father died, and she struggled to even think about 5 things that she loved about him. And again, we perceive a sense of guilt coming from her, like she really tries to think about what are those 5 things that she loves about her father, but she can't come up even with one. Some people that come from toxic family environment might feel this guilt if they perceive that they can't keep loving those parents that made them experience so many terrible things. People like to remind other people how family is family and you should always love your parents no matter what. But sometimes that is not always easy, and it kind of feels like there is an extra pressure to feel those emotions when it is towards a parent that you simply cannot love. Also, we need to think about the fact that Lily's self-esteem is also very low. This is not uncommon for children that come from these difficult home environments, but also the guilt and the shame that Lily's mother constantly projects towards her will naturally cause Lily's self-esteem to drop significantly. And it is during this very difficult time of her life that Lily meets Riley. So let's talk about Riley. I'm realizing now that in this video I've called the male protagonists both Ryle and Riley. There is no good reason for this. I am just terrible with names, so I hope you guys forgive me for this. With Riley, the red flags were there from the start. Lily decided to ignore those red flags, possibly because she was unconsciously replicating a family script. For example, in the very first scene, we see Riley being violent towards a chair. And of course it is just a chair. But if you've ever been near someone that had an anger outburst and maybe kicked something or punched a wall or threw something, you will know how intimidating that must feel and how scary sometimes that can be. But again, this event gets a little bit forgotten because it's just a chair, he was angry, and Lily justifies him a little bit, even maybe with herself. Then Riley states that he doesn't do serious relationships. He's just a situationship kind of guy. And when he offered Lily a situationship, basically, or like a friends with benefits kind of thing, she refuses because she would like to have a serious relationship, so she keeps rejecting him. They're looking for 2 different things and they cannot give to each other what the other person needs. The fact that Ryle never had a serious relationship before is also very important. Whenever we have a serious relationship, we learn a lot about how to be in a relationship, but we also learn a lot about ourselves and how we behave in our relationships. And maybe what are our unhelpful patterns in our relationships, what is our attachment style. By the way, if you want to know more about attachment style, you should definitely check my video over here, or here. So we know that Ryle never had the chance to do that. He was never in a serious relationship, so potentially he doesn't know how he behaves in serious relationships. He doesn't know what his attachment style is. I mean, he's probably a little bit avoidant, but he never properly explored that side of him in a serious relationship. He also never had the chance to learn from past mistakes because he never did those mistakes because he was never in a relationship in the first place. After Lily rejects him, Ryle starts being a little bit obsessive. It's clear that he can't take a no for an answer. He likes Lily and he wants her to give him a chance. Lily is a little bit reluctant, although in the movie it's clear that she also fancies him. I think we cannot deny that Ryle is insistent. Maybe we do not really perceive that, because in the movie it does not really look like Lily is bothered by his behavior. But yeah, I think we can all agree that Ryle is very insistent towards Lily. Once the two get in a relationship, I think we can safely say that Ryle starts love bombing her, giving her a lot of attention and making her live like this fairy tale of a relationship. I think there are some things that Ryle say and that are a little bit concerning. I'm gonna read to you some of this. For example, Lily asks him, "Are you happy?" And he says, I wasn't, but with you, I am. That is a little bit messed up. You shouldn't be happy because you're with someone. You should be happy and content with yourself. And your partner should just be an addition to your life. It shouldn't be the reason of your happiness. And saying something like this is also giving a lot of responsibility to a partner that feels responsible for your happiness. And that starts thinking maybe, well, if I leave this person, then it's going to be miserable, and I don't want him to be miserable because I love him. Something else that I found a bit weird was when he said, if you hurt your toe, I feel guilty because the wall was there, which it feels like he's professing his love and want to tell her how protective he is of her, but I think it's a little bit extreme. Like, why should you feel responsible because I hurt my toe on the wall? But there are other things. For example, after the fights in the bar with Atlas, he also says, if I'm not what you want, also indicating some sort of fear of rejection in the relationship. So there are loads of signs that Ryle might not very be emotionally mature for a relationship. Later in the movie, we also find out that when Ryle was a child, he was involved in a serious incident with his brother that resulted in Ryle accidentally killing his brother. And we understand in the movie that Ryle was very traumatized by this event and that possibly it affected his self-esteem and just how he functions in his everyday life. This is not necessarily related to the concept of family scripts, but I thought it was still relevant to mention. This obviously does not justify Ryle in any way, but as it is also said in the movie, I think it kind of helps understand where Ryle's insecurities come from. Although I probably would have liked them to explore this a little bit more in the movie, but they don't really go into much details about the impact that this had on Ryle, probably because they didn't want to end up in a situation where the perpetrator was justified a little bit. But I think that these kind of things, even though they definitely don't justify someone, it helps put things in perspective and maybe understand a character a little bit better, which for those that are interested in the psychology of a character, which I think you are if you're watching this video, it's always interesting to do. Obviously, as the movie progresses, Ryle starts being abusive towards Lily. There are in particular 3 incidents that are shown in the movie. In the first one, he hit her, I think because something was burning in the oven and he was fixing the oven and she went there to assist him and he hurt her. During the second incident, he threw her down the stairs. And in the third incident, there is an act of sexual violence that is perpetrated, which is obviously the most serious one, and that is also the one that makes Lily realize that she is in a very dangerous situation and she needs to get as far from there as possible. So Lily has ended up with someone that is abusive, just like her father. Even though she didn't love her father, she resents him for everything that he has done to her mother, and as we will find out, to Atlas as well. She is replicating the same dynamic that was present in her family. She minimizes the violence perpetrated by Ryle towards her. She keeps telling to others and to herself that these were just incidents, he was just angry, like nothing serious happened, it was just an incident. So she justifies him and she maybe feels guilty because she was the one provoking him, as many of these fights were caused by Lily's possible feelings for Atlas, so she possibly feels some sort of guilt as well. She might be feeling like she deserves this kind of treatment. And having talked about family scripts, the question is, why do people do that? The statistics show that many women that end up in abusive relationships often come from abusive families. So it is natural to ask ourselves a question, like, if they experienced this when they were children, like, why would they end up in a similar relationship in the future? And unfortunately, I mean, it's even stupid for me to say that, but I feel like I need to highlight this. This is not the victim's responsibility. It is in no way the victim's responsibility. Unfortunately, what happens for these people, it's something that is unconscious, and it is very much related to something that in psychology we call generational trauma. What happens is that we usually like to go to what is familiar to us. You know how in psychology often people talk about Freud and about how Freud said that you usually end up with someone that look like one of your parents and that even behaves in a similar way to one of your parents, usually the parent that is the opposite sex to yours. Well, the concept of family script might well explain this principle as well. When something is familiar for us, we know exactly how it's gonna go. It is predictable. As humans, we like predictability because it empties space in our brains. We don't have to constantly fear and worry about what is going to happen next. A familiar situation, for as bad as it can be, it is predictable. We know what's gonna happen. And that is also the reason why it is so common for victims of domestic abuse to go back to their abusive partners. It's because that relationship, for as bad as it can be, is familiar for them. They know exactly what to expect. A different relationship, a healthier relationship, is scary because they don't know what's gonna happen. They don't know what to expect from a partner that maybe, I don't know, has a secure attachment style and that treats them well. Our brain actually gets very anxious and stressed in unfamiliar situations. Just think about the feelings that you experience every time you go to a situation that is a little bit different, something new. It's scary. It's very scary. So no wonder our relationship, that is something huge, it's our intimate relationship, so important in our everyday life, and it is scary to not know what's gonna happen. Of course, there are multiple reasons why women often tend to go back to their abuser or to repeat family scripts. One of these being low self-esteem, so maybe thinking that they do not deserve a different kind of love because that is the only love that they've ever received. That feeling of guilt that we talked about before. So there are multiple reasons, but if we want to talk about the concept of family script, then the reason behind that is familiarity, is going to what you feel familiar because that is what your brain perceives as safe. If you're not new to this channel, you know that our brain can be our best friend and our worst enemy at the same time. Our brain just wants us to survive, but sometimes it's not able to differentiate dangerous from safe situations because it's just an organ that works based on how it evolved throughout the centuries and on our past experiences and what are the experiences that she perceives are safe. Our brain wants to help us. She just wants to be helpful, but sometimes it can lead us towards a very bad situation. So this is why it is very important that we are aware of our unconscious bias, so our limitations, so our difficulties, of all the pattern that our brain can implement, and try to discern from what is helpful to what is unhelpful for us. The movie ends with an happy ending. Lily decides to break the cycle of abuse. She gets pregnant with Ryle's baby and she decides not to get back with him and actually ask for a divorce. One of the last scenes of the movie is actually Lily holding her child and says, "That's it, we're gonna end it, it ends with us." And what is gonna end with us? The family script, or the intergenerational transmission, the theory whereby abusive dynamics can be passed through generations. Children who witness or experience abuse may internalize this behavior and replicate them in their relationships. The family script they learn can therefore perpetuate cycles of abuse. Lily decides to end the generational trauma making her daughter grow up in a healthy family. She decides not to accept abusive behaviors from her partner, and in this way she will protect her daughter from being in an abusive relationship in the future. That is a huge act of love. Ideally, women should leave their abusive partners because they love themselves, but sometimes that can be difficult, so many women find the strength to leave abusive partners out of love for their children. In this part of the video, I talk about women because obviously I was talking about Lily, the protagonist of the movie, is a female, and statistics show that victims of domestic abuse tends to be female, but obviously that is not always the case. Men can also be victims of domestic violence, and this concept is valid for males as well. I want to end this video talking about possible ways to get out of an abusive relationship. Of course, I appreciate that leaving an abusive partner is very, very difficult. And if you're watching this video and you are in a similar situation, please be safe, but also be kind towards yourself, because the situation you're in is not normal, is abnormal, and it wouldn't be okay for you to expect a normal behavior for yourself in an abnormal situation. I should have probably explained this a little bit better. By abnormal, I mean unusual, like a situation that you're not supposed to be in. And I just meant to say that in these situations, it is very difficult to implement behavior that everyone expects you to implement. So, for example, of course you're gonna leave someone at the first slap, but we know that that is not always the case, that is not always possible. The situation is completely messed up, and it will be unfair to ask someone in such situation to implement the usual thinking patterns that will of course be compromised. We all wake up every morning and we all do the best we can do with the tools that we have at our disposal. So how do people usually get out of an abusive relationship? The first step is to be aware that you are in fact replicating a family script. This is what happens to Lily at some point in the movie. She realizes that she is replicating unhealthy patterns that were present in her family, in her own relationship. And she decides to put an end to it and just leave her abuser. Once you identify your script, you can change it. Although that sometimes takes a lot of work. In the movie, Lily finds comfort from another partner. Atlas, I'm looking at you. And I don't think that is the best way to end an abusive relationship. But don't get me wrong, it is a way people sometimes get out of abusive relationships. They meet someone that treats them well, and they then find the strength to leave an abusive partner knowing that there is someone else that waits for them on the other side. Sometimes cheating is involved, and I am in no way condoning cheating in this video, but in a healthy relationship, of course, cheating is the worst thing that you can do to a partner. Because you are violating the contract of a relationship, and you basically are hurting the trust that someone is placing in you, so it's obviously a terrible thing to do. But in an abusive relationships, sometimes that can seem like the only way out. The reason why I don't necessarily think that is the best way is because obviously someone should leave an abusive relationship because they understand that they deserve something different. They should find the strength within themselves, not within another person. And because they need the necessary time to heal, maybe go to therapy, get rid of the unhealthy patterns that got them stuck in an abusive relationship in the first place, get rid of the family scripts, and do a lot of work on themselves before going into another relationship. So that is why maybe it's not the optimal way. It's just that people should love themselves enough and not love another person to get out of an abusive relationship. But again, this is an abnormal situation and safety is the priority, so people need to do what they need to do. So if finding someone else is the only way they can find the strength, then yes, that can be a way to end an abusive relationship. Having a support network around you is also very helpful. In the movie, unexpectedly, I mean it was unexpected for me, Lily receives support from Ryle's sister. And as we said, leaving these kind of relationships is very hard, and it is even harder when you are alone. Receiving emotional support, but even practical support like food, shelter, financial support from someone sometimes can be the biggest blessing that you can have. If you have no one in your life that can support you and you're trying to leave such relationships, then there are a lot of DV shelters that can help. Sometimes they also provide with legal aid. Please just look around in your area. There will be people that are willing to help. Unfortunately, abusive partners often try to isolate you from your family and friends, so it is not uncommon from DV victims to end up alone. But if you can reach to someone, anyone, and explain the situation and look for support, please try to do that. Sometimes it can be hard for males, especially because, I don't know in every part of the world. I know, for example, in Italy, it is very difficult to find a DV shelter for men. I am unaware of the situation in the UK where I live now, so I'm actually gonna do some research on that, and I might get some information in the description box below. But yeah, reach out to someone, anyone. You can also take legal precautions, go to the police if you can, use restraining orders, report your partners, try to do whatever you can to keep yourself safe. And the final thing that I want to mention is therapy. Of course, therapy can really help understand what your unconscious bias is, how you can maybe break free from family scripts, and how you can safely rewrite them. Even after an abusive relationship has ended, going to therapy can be very helpful to maybe try to understand what went wrong and how you can avoid something similar in the future. This is not to say that there won't be any setbacks. It is very common to end up in old patterns of behavior. This should not be judged and this should not be shamed. Please be kind with yourself and remember you are in an abnormal situation. And this brings us to the end of the video. It was a little bit different from my usual videos, but I hope it was helpful. I did use some psychological principles that are evidence-based and backed up by science, but in this video I also shared my own personal opinion, so this is not necessarily universal. Each case is its own dynamics, so just do what's best for you and what keeps you safe, really. I just wanted to end the video saying that. Said that, I know that there have been a lot of criticism on the movie. If you want to watch a TV series that, again, in my opinion, depicts abusive relationships very well, is made. You can find it on Netflix, and I think it's just amazing. I love that series so much, and it talks about the ugliest dynamics and even the most difficult to accept. Yeah, it is unfortunately a very sad reality. If you also want to share your opinions on the movie, or maybe what I said, if you would like some clarification, if there is anything else that you would like to add, please use the comment section and we can have a nice, lovely discussion. Please try to be kind. Don't offend anyone. There are people that are fighting real battles out there, and yeah, you never know what someone is going through, so yeah, share your opinion but always be kind. And yeah, that is really all for today's video, and I will see you on the next one. Bye.